Hey, group leaders, welcome to week one of small group. And we are just throwing you in there. Revelation 11, 1 through 17 is the passage that you'll be discussing, and the passage that will be preached on, obviously, after your groups have met. And this scene, y'all, is insane. And you're gonna likely get a lot of questions about this one. And one thing to remember is the overarching theme that we see in Revelation is that Jesus wins. The church wins. Jesus is on the throne. Jesus is glorified in heaven. Jesus is the reason for all this, and Jesus is the victor in all of this. And so, always keeping that theme in mind, the overarching theme of the book of Revelation is that. When we come to Revelation chapter 11, there's a lot of Old Testament imagery in this passage, and I will link a few things uh, in the show notes, if you will, that you might find helpful to look over as you are preparing for this. Anytime in Scripture when a measuring rod is brought out, typically means bad news. That usually represents judgment, and that's kind of what's happening here. Is that in 11, 1 through 17, there are these two witnesses. Who are they? We're actually not sure. We know what they do represent, or maybe the ends to which they are employed, is that they are witnessing to the world, preaching to those who are lost, the judgment that is going to come from the throne of heaven. And so these two witnesses are sent to the earth, and there is a great tribulation that's happening. The earth, the people of the earth, right? The earth always kind of represents the ungodly, right? You got the realm of heaven, you got the realm of earth. And so they're coming to the ungodly really to preach to them of what God is doing. They are not accepted. They are persecuted. We're going to see that they're killed. And so, what does all this mean? Again, there are so many interpretations of what this means. And so, you're likely going to get caught up on who are these two witnesses. It's always safe to say, I don't know. It's always safe to say, ask a pastor. We'll gladly have those conversations. So I will link a few things from commentaries in there that will maybe better explain who that is, just for the sake of time and brevity here on this video. But ultimately, what this passage is going to be about, and you'll see this in the guides, the big idea of this is that Jesus defeats his enemies. Jesus is always victorious, remember. He's victorious over sin, and he's victorious over those who persecute his church. We're going to ask a few things about who the major characters are in this story to really try to, piece by piece, break down the complexity of such a chapter into more digestible portions, if you will. It's been said the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And so that's what we're going to do. As we're eating this elephant, we're going to take it one bite at a time. Who are the major characters? What is the imagery? Imagery is huge in Revelation. What is the imagery that John is using to describe this scene as it unfolds? What is the power given to the two witnesses, and what is their fate? And really, what we want to get your group to, if you want to steer it this way, it would likely be of benefit to you. That this is a passage on suffering for the church. Suffering for God's people, that the church is still awaiting the return of Christ. We're still awaiting Jesus to come and be with his people. And we know that as we live in these end times, as we find ourselves in now, that what we find ourselves doing is that we find ourselves suffering for the sake of the gospel. We're suffering, waiting on Jesus to return. Sin is still in the world. The world still hates us. Flesh hates us. The devil hates us. So we are fighting against all those things. So what we want your group to know, and hopefully build your discussion around, would be this: where are you feeling this pinch point? Where's the pain point in your own life, in your own walk with the Lord, in your own journey of sanctification? Where in the midst of all that suffering, do you long for the promise of the resurrection? Uh, in what ways would you love for Jesus to meet you where you are right now as you are suffering? And how does the promise of this coming kingdom, how does the promise that these two witnesses will be avenged and that these two witnesses will be victorious, how does that bring hope to where you are, even in the midst of your own suffering now? And then to walk away with really some tangible steps to deepen your trust in the Lord in the midst of great sadness. So in those areas of your life and the people of which you are ministering to, those areas where there is just deep, deep sadness, where does the hope of a resurrection, where does the hope of victory come in and speak to those areas? That's where we want to take the sermon discussion on Sunday as we're preaching this. And so we do believe that this is where the scripture is leading as well. So as you facilitate, really be on the lookout for the confusion is probably going to come in around who those two witnesses are and all the imagery. Just keep reminding folks that it's okay to be confused. Um, we like to, as human beings, hide behind confusion because we're insecure with it. Revelation calls us into that confusion to live in the midst of that, much like we live in the midst of a confused world currently as it stands. Eliot says about this passage, he believes what John believes, but we're not always sure what John believes. And so it's okay to hold that. It's okay to hold that tension. It's okay to hold that tension for the people in your group. Again, reach out to pastors, reach out to Lisa, reach out to Kat, reach out to whoever is your group's coordinator at your campus. Let them know you have questions. We are happy to answer those. We don't want to leave you hanging. Thanks again. Week one's going to be wild, but you guys can do it. The Lord is good and the Lord is faithful.